Daniel Kretinsky has no desire or intention to take over West Ham at all. He'll retain as a shareholder, and he'd probably look to expand his shareholding, but he's not looking to take over at all. This really shouldn't be news at all. This is something we've been saying on this channel for quite a few years now, that it was unlikely that he was ever going to expand that, particularly not with Trip Smith in place, who's clearly there for a broker to oversee a far bigger takeover at some point. So it was always an investment for Kretinsky. It shouldn't be news at all. The reason it's become news in the last few days is because it's sort of gained traction that he's going to try and get more influence over West Ham. It's quite an odd one. We've actually been discussing it over on our Patreon WhatsApp group. As for those of you that are watching this and part of that WhatsApp group, you'll know I said a couple of days ago over on the WhatsApp group, Kretinsky's got far bigger fish to fry at the moment. And it's not just because of the Royal Mail. But why this is interesting at the moment is the difference now is that today, well, yesterday, as you probably watched this, Kretinsky's staff, people that work for him, his advisors, his solicitors, they're all leaking the news. They're all saying, well, we have no interest. We have no interest in taking over West Ham at all. So I just want to sort of run through a few things now and just really explain exactly what's happening and why. First of all, you've got this Royal Mail thing going on, but it's not just that. It's not just that at all. First, you've got to remember Kretinsky is a joint owner of Sparta Prague. As part of that, he can't take any football decisions in West Ham anyway. It is suspected he lent a little bit and had some influence on the appointment of Tim Steidten, but reports in the last couple of days that he was instrumental in getting rid of David Moyes and appointing Julian Lopetegui are really, really far wider than mark. But you don't need to know anything about the breaking news to understand that. Look, David Moyes has gone largely due to David Moyes. It might not make a great story, but he's largely gone because his contract was at an end, because even David Moyes himself said he wasn't going to sign a new deal. The board were wondering whether to give him one anyway. I'm talking about a new contract there, not one of those. There was a massive amount of fan pressure for David Moyes not to get a new deal, and that's why he didn't get a new deal. West Ham started looking for alternatives. They hedged their bets. They interviewed Lopetegui while Moyes was running his contract down. And they were impressed by Lopetegui. David Sullivan pretty much wholeheartedly made that decision. So that's the story. It's not as sexy as Kretinsky taking over, but it really is the truth of the matter. In terms of Kretinsky himself, he can't. And actually what was interesting was that one of his advisors actually said Sparta Prague is Kretinsky's first love. And some of the language that was being used around Kretinsky's takeover of West Ham by some of his advisors, I think one of the quotes was, there is more chance of the Royal Mail making a Mark Noble stamp than there is Daniel taking over at West Ham United. I mean, that's a weird quote, but it's so detailed that you just sort of know it can't. That's not a made up quote at all. And the Daily Mail are running big on this story. And you know what? If it was false, they wouldn't get away with it. This story's out there because of a story which was on Football Insider a couple of days ago, which made a lot of grand claims about Kretinsky's influence, which clearly is just not true at all. So he's obviously asked his advisors to put the record straight. Quite frankly, I'm surprised he's got the time, because at the moment he's caught right in the middle of a big takeover for the Royal Mail. But that's just not it. That almost pales into insignificance next to another takeover he's got going on, which for a French company called Atos. Now, Atos, I'll level with you here. I didn't know anything about Atos before 7 days ago when it really sort of hit the news. They make computers, they make software, they make a lot of software for, funny enough, the French nuclear program. They have a lot of contracts, Atos, for the upcoming Olympic Games as well, but they're struggling. It looks like Kretinsky's going to go in there and bail them out. I say bail them out, not look after them, going to go and take them over. And so he has a lot going on. I do believe looks like the Royal Mail deal, if it goes through, if the proposed share offer gets accepted, that's £3.5 billion. And then he's got this other one, which is even bigger. He ain't that bothered. The truth of the matter is he ain't that bothered about West Ham at the moment. There were some really interesting quotes in there saying that he's only been to 6 West Ham games. It's an investment. It's an investment in the same way that his investment in Sainsbury's is an investment. It's an investment in the same way that his investment was in Foot Locker. Just because he has an investment in a company and he has an investment in a lot of companies doesn't mean he's going to basically make that final step. Now, he has tried to buy some of the Gold shares. Now, obviously, what's happened was David Gold obviously sadly passed away. His shares, a lot of his shares went to his family, some of them to Jacqueline, his daughter. I mean, that's sort of double tragedy. Jacqueline, who was far too young to pass away, she unfortunately passed away as well. Leaving Vanessa pretty much and Dan Cunningham to run the family estate, but particularly with the West Ham shares there as well. So they were looking to sell off a portion of those shares. Now, Kretinsky was looking to buy some of those shares, but that's about it. And I just think it's really worth pointing out that all Kretinsky's advisors, solicitors, I mean, people have probably got better things to do, but they were sort of at pains to point out he's not about to do this. He wasn't involved in the David Moyes stuff. He's not involved in the running of West Ham, not looking to be involved in the running of West Ham, and he has got a lot on his plate. And he really will do. He will have an awful lot. And then so it brings you to the suggestion that maybe he'll do it for his love of football. Well, they were, again, keen to stress that his love of football is massively with Sparta Prague. That's his team, and even though he loves them and that's his childhood club, he only bought 40% of them because he just didn't have the time to run it. So if he's not going to do that with Sparta Prague, he's highly unlikely to do it with West Ham. And this has always really been the case with him and Trip Smith and any of these people. It is an investment. There's only one person that loves running West Ham, and it's David Sullivan. And the great irony is, it's funny this story comes out because it was only a day, maybe 2 days ago, that Jack Sullivan did an interview. I can't even remember who he did it with, but I read the interview and he said, I can't ever see Dad giving up. He loves it. And you get that impression. I remember back to an old, I don't know, it must have been an interview at Sullivan's house or something like that. And maybe my memory of it is slightly hazy, but it went something along the lines of the interviewer said about the swimming pool. And I think David Sullivan turned around, looked at the swimming pool, and he sort of alluded to the fact that he'd hardly ever been in it. Because you know what he does? He loves working with West Ham. He loves it. He absolutely loves West Ham. He loves the deal. A lot of these people are like that. I mean, a lot of these businessmen, businesswomen, they are like that. They live for the deal. Even when they've got more money than they could ever need, it's the deal. It's the deal. And what he loves doing the deal. He loves being involved at West Ham. That's it. It really is as simple as that. Well, that's not Kretinsky's love. Well, Kretinsky loves the deal, but he is, what they call him, the Czech Sphinx. I don't know why they call him that. But he loves the deals. He loves doing this stuff with companies. He loves rescuing companies, taking companies over. But to think that Kretinsky is going to sit there and take over West Ham and start deciding who's going to be the manager and who our new left back or right back is going to be, forget it. He's just not interested. He honestly, he has bigger fish to fry. In terms of his portfolio, his stake in West Ham, was it 27% stake? It's small fry. It really is. I think his investment in West Ham is something like 160 million. I think all his investments are 18 billion. I think his wife is worth 17 billion. A completely different. So his wife's father, say his father-in-law, who passed away, what was the richest man in the Czech Republic. Between them, they've got something like 37 billion. The 160 million in West Ham, as much as it pains me to say it, is not important. It really is just not important to him. And I think reading between the lines, like a lot of other people, he's waiting around, he's waiting, being patient, seeing what happens with the stadium, seeing how that basically increases West Ham's either value or revenue stream or something like that. And it'll sell. It'll sell when the time is right and the price is high. That's it. And look, sorry to be the bearer of bad news. It's not even my news, not my news. That Daily Mail reported it. But as I say, go back to very old videos on this channel about Kretinsky, and that's what we were saying on here. Don't think he's going to take over. Just don't think he's that kind of guy. He's not the knight in shining armour to rescue us. I think I'm not saying he's been no benefit at all. I think there's facilities in place where we don't now have to borrow money at ridiculous high interest rates. I think there's a lending facility with him should we need it. But I don't think we're going to. I think you'll probably find we do I spoke yesterday about how much money West Ham will spend. I think you'll probably find us doing a net spend. That is it. With, of course, money we owed for Declan Rice and money that's been brought in from the European run and the other money we've brought in, and West Ham are in a better position than most clubs. But I think you will find we will be doing a sort of net spend. I don't think we'll be spending over it and dipping into any loan facility or dipping into borrowing money from Daniel Kretinsky. It's just not going to happen. So, yeah, sorry to be the bearer of bad news on that one, really. Particularly, as I didn't even know, honestly, I didn't realise people were getting starting to get a little bit excited about how it might happen, and he was pushing it forward and getting rid of Moyes. And you know what? As far as I understand it, as far as I understood it before, that was the case. As far as I understand it now, from his most trusted advisors, who he's been, who've worked for him for years and years and years, he had nothing to do with it. He's too busy.